if we dip into stronger lofts and things like that that lower the spin and make the shot go further, that looks great on the range, but that's not how we play golf. Because as soon as your golf ball hops over into the first cut, we lower that spin from there. And now you've got this ball coming in hot and you're trying to play an elite schedule. If that hole location's in the front tucked or the greens are firm, you can't stop the golf ball like your playing competitor can.
This is the Tournament Code.
We appreciate you taking the time to join us, Corey. We know a little bit about your role right now with Titleist, but before we start with Titleist and Auburn and Guilford, for all that, let's just start with the beginning. How'd you get into golf?
Yeah, I was, I guess, probably 7 years old. And, I was an active kid, like anything I could do, just, outside all day, playing 4 different sports, come in, change my clothes from football stuff to basketball stuff to whatever. And then about 7 years old, my dad started teaching me just kind of how to grip it a little bit, and he was leaning on instructional. He was a guy that didn't pick up the game till he was in his late 20s. And then I started taking some lessons that year with the local pro and probably got out on the golf course when I was 8 years old. A year of that or so, and then start to kind of enter some 9-hole junior stuff and go from there. But I continued to play soccer. I continued to play basketball all the way into high school, and golf was kind of something else there, just for somebody who loved sports. I loved being competitive in anything. I mean, in sixth grade, we didn't have sixth grade sports, so I joined the academic team just so I could be on a team, and that's kind of how I was wired as a kid, just whatever I could do to be competitive. So that's kind of how golf was for me. Now having some hindsight as to things I could have done differently. The one thing I wouldn't change, though, is just always being super competitive in everything I did.
So you ended up playing
Yep.
golf at Transylvania University. And what was it about golf that stuck out to you that made you eventually specialize in that sport?
Yeah, it's hard to say. Kind of topped out at 6 foot, so the basketball thing started becoming harder and harder. So my freshman year at Transylvania, my high school team won the state championship. So I had some guys back there that were a little younger than me, a little better than me, and so that helped a little bit on moving me the golf direction. But no, hey, I tried to kind of do a little bit of everything there, and I had a great. Just Brian Lane was the difference maker. I got a chance to meet him in the recruiting process, and I was, just because of what I mentioned, how competitive I was, I did know I wanted to go somewhere where I was going to be able to contribute to the team's success or the team's failure, either one. But getting to know Brian through the process, I think we came in as he was building that program and probably had 5 freshmen in the lineup a lot of my freshman year. So we were kind of a new group that I think he knew when he recruited us that we were going to get a chance to come in and play immediately. So yeah, I ended up there and I had a great 4 years. As far as I had a lot of growing up to do, a lot of learning to do, but no regrets with any of it. I've been fortunate to have some good steps along the way, and I think that was probably a key piece to it. Yeah.
Absolutely. And it seems like, talked about growing up, finding things to do. And while you were at Transy, it seemed like you improved some over the course of time. I mean, you were 3-time all conference there. And for those who don't know, Transylvania's a D3 school in Lexington, Kentucky. So we're familiar with it. We know Coach Lane, known him a long time, and he's a great guy. So it's good to have coaches who are great guys, because a lot of guys go to school and, coaches this, coaches that. Like Coach Lane's a great guy and a great guy to learn from. So it's cool you got that experience. Tell us a little bit about the growth that happened over that time and how college golf was just different than high school golf.
Yeah, probably didn't grow as fast as I should have during that time, to be honest with you. Probably too many days at Keeneland. Should have been hitting more balls down the road at Man of War on some of those days, but that's part of the learning curve, and that's part of kind of what inspired me to get into coaching is, to try to help. I think that's one of the biggest things that I see with junior players or even college players is not being willing to sacrifice now for the betterment of the future. It's hard. It's hard as a young person, right? You get pulled in a lot of different directions, distractions, things like that. And not that Brian was awesome, and I think he did as much as he could. But looking back, like, I wish I would have practiced a little bit more. Maybe wish I would have studied a little harder. All those things, right? But Transylvania was a great academic school, pushed me academically. It was all I wanted to get through there in 4 years. So the whole thing, I think, made me, really kind of form me into a good place to for the next chapter after that. But along the way, I definitely made some steps, got a little better, still knowing what I know now. Kick myself that I could have been even better. But it was good. It was a good experience.
So you talked about that next chapter after college, and you've done a lot of different things inside the golf world. So why don't you kind of talk about what you did right out of college? And, did you always think that you would be in the golf world after college, or was that sort of realization once it started to take place?
Yeah, so business management major, didn't really know exactly the route I wanted to go. Business made a lot of sense to me. I was always able to kind of wrap my head around it. But ultimately, I'll tell you what got me started coaching was Brian Lane. And just what we talked about, the period of me growing up a little bit. Wasn't a bad kid in college, but just I needed to grow up a little bit, right? And what I liked about Brian was he was always a positive influence without it being like a sit down meeting or us having to have a talk. I think he just kind of led by being a good example, and maybe even at times when we're on trips when he may think we're not watching him, just little things, how he treated people, how he treated the waitress, how he treated somebody going in and thanking the head pro, things like that. So what I took away from that was, for me, how valuable that period was, from 18 to 22, where we're all trying to find ourselves. We don't like we kind of come off tough and all that, but we're still kids, right? We're trying to find our way. So what better than to get into coaching and try to be that positive influence for, what could be 10 to 12 kids every year, with 4 or 5 new ones showing up every year, and just be a chance to just kind of be that positive light, even as indirectly as it may be, that may help the next young man that followed kind of my shoes, where grew up a lot, and I think was a better person when I came out of my 4 years at school.
Absolutely. So tell us a little bit how that manifests itself. You want to help people, you're in the golf world. Tell us about how that started for you and what kind of some of the steps were.
Yeah. So after I finished up, I kind of played a few events that summer, and then I was teaching some lessons, some clinics at Man of War Golf. And then Brian had also asked me to come on and be an assistant coach there at Transylvania. He also has basketball duties as well. And so it was actually a great opportunity for me because there was an overlap there with basketball and golf where he was pretty tied up. So it kind of allowed me to have the team on my own a little bit. And so, and then on the side, I'm working with, kids clinics, adult clinics. It's 2008, 2009 there. So the TPI world is taking off a little bit with the golf fitness side. And so I've gone and done certifications in that at this point. And so TrackMan was just coming along. We had this awful launch monitor at Man of War Golf. We were doing some club fittings and stuff with. So I'm kind of doing all these things, and I'm like, I think just the move here, I think it's just to coach college golf. Like, I'm already doing all this all-encompassing stuff. That's pretty much what coaching is. Let's kind of make a move there. And got a call when I was 24. So my second season, kind of helping Brian at Transylvania. I got a call from Guilford College that was interested in talking to me. I'd played against Guilford in the national championship a couple times. They'd won 3 national championships, I think, at that point, and went down and kind of checked everything out and got offered the job on my way back to the airport. And so started there at Guilford College, and had to pay extra when we flew in and rented a car because I wasn't 25 yet. So I was a young coach, and it was, I'll take the flattering moments of still being confused as one of the players back then. But yeah, and it's, the long story is the long story short is had a good run there. Started working all of Jerry Haas's camps at Wake Forest. That was only 40 minutes down the road. Became really close with Jerry and his assistant then, Dan Walters, and Nick Kleinert at Auburn. His alma mater is Wake Forest. So when the opening came at Auburn, I remember looking down at my phone and Jerry's calling me and he's saying, "Hey, this is a great opportunity for you." And I think in return, he's calling Nick saying, "Hey, I've got somebody for you." And that one and even on into this chapter has all been the cliche saying of all about who you know and just somebody looking out for you. So that's kind of how that door opened up. And 7 years in Auburn, and now this is coming up on 2 years at being with Titleist, and I live in Dallas now. So been probably the luckiest guy you've had on this show. Just to and I've had some really fortunate breaks, some good bounces along the way.
That's what it takes in life. And I like that you made the long story short, and let's take a little bit and make the short story long for a bit and talk a little bit about that Guilford time, because as a young guy, there's a lot to figure out. Even when you turn 23, you don't figure out the keys to life, and it can take a lot, especially when you're dealing with people that are 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 years younger than you. It's hard to be both like in charge of them, and also you really feel like you're their peer. Now to them, like a lot of times they'll feel like, oh man, he's so much older than us, but it's pretty easy to remember when you were a few years younger. So you get to Guilford, you're head coach there, and for people who don't know, like sometimes I think in a sense D3 a lot of times gets a bad rap. Like is it always the highest level of competition, like top to bottom? It's not necessarily the same as D1, but a lot of those top D3 schools, a lot of those guys could play other places. Maybe not initially out of high school. Some of them could, some of them couldn't. Some chose to go there, but like as time goes on, a lot of those top ones could go on and play at other levels and have gone on to play at higher levels on Corn Ferry PGA Tour, etc.
Yeah.
And Guilford's one of those places, again, for people who don't know, where, as you said, like multiple national championships. And when I was looking at going to different schools, that was one of the top D3 schools. So tell us a little bit about stepping into the shoes there and figuring out how to be a head coach.
Yeah, and you're kind of spot on there. I do feel like at the Division III level, it's very top heavy. So you've got probably 20 to 25 schools. It just seems like year in year out separate themselves versus the Division I landscape where it could be a team that makes a run at nationals, and then the next year they're fighting to stay inside the top 100 ranking. Right? It's a different depth there. But I did find at the top with those guys, what I had to offer them was I had to try to find those super competitive guys too, that they just wanted to win a championship regardless of maybe what was printed on it, right? And so they had some offers to go to some places, and they knew maybe those places might be a long shot for them to play. But I sold them on the fact that they could come here, we could compete, and we could compete for national championships. The highest, the trophy at the highest level of our level. And so, but I was young, and I think the biggest thing I could offer those guys was just things I had learned, trying to go through these 4 years and not have a lot of regrets at the end, using your time wisely, having some structure, being accountable. I hadn't been exposed yet to all the fortunate time I've had with great instructors and great information. I mean, I was helping guys with basic fundamentals, managing the golf course a little bit, alignment, things like that. But the biggest thing I think I had to offer them was just somebody who had recently been in their shoes and could help them kind of make better decisions and get the most out of their 4 years. So at the end of it, they felt like they did everything they could to be successful on the golf course and in the classroom, and have a great college experience as a whole.
As part of that, you got to help people along, try to make things easy on players as far as helping them out. And it sounds like to a degree you were kind of a player's coach. Tell us a little bit about what tournament prep was like at Guilford. We'll talk a little bit about Auburn too. We'll talk a little bit because we talked with Grayson Huff. He had great things to say about you and how you worked with him and the team as far as preparing people. But at Guilford, tell us a little bit about how you prepared for tournaments and what you were working on with players, especially given, compared to Auburn, the lack of resources at Guilford might be a little noticeable.
Yeah, I mean, so for any college player or junior player that's listening out there, as you know, typically you get one practice round for a college event. PGA Tour guys, they roll in on sometimes Sunday night, Monday morning, and they can get 3 days out there. Especially for a PGA Tour rookie, that's huge because you're trying to figure out where the locker room is, right? And where you got to go to do an interview and things like that. But for college golf, you get one practice round day, and so that's an extremely important day. And when you don't have the budget at a Division III school like you do at an SEC school that I was at later, but so a lot of those days are probably leaving early that morning, traveling in the car for maybe 3-4 hours and teeing it up sometimes at 3 p.m. all the way till dark. And you're trying to learn the golf course, and they've been in the car for 4 or 5 hours. They're trying to find their golf swing. Their body doesn't feel great, but you're just trying to get them to understand, like, that's not the point of today. Like, today is not about how well you're hitting driver. Today is trying to figure out that while it's calm here right now, it's going to be blowing into your face tomorrow. And now that bunker you just hit it over is not going to be, you're not going to be able to do the same thing, right? Things like that. And just getting there, trying to keep their focus in practice rounds, because it is such a short window and the only day you're going to get to prep the golf course. Just, starting to teach them, stop hitting putts to the flag today. Like, we may not know where the holes are going to be, but I can tell you the one place it's not going to be is where the hole's cut right now. So stop wasting time. Just little things like that was a lot of our prep. Making sure guys are getting, we're 8 holes in and nobody's hit a bunker shot yet. Like, the sand is different here than it is in Greensboro. Let's get in there. Let's figure out what's going on. Just trying to hurt them a little bit, I think was the best way. Just keep them on track. So have some fun. Usually try to switch it up the last 3 holes to, low man on the last 3 picks dinner, whatever it is, just to try to get in a little bit of competitive mode, knowing that the next morning we're going to turn around and it's time to count a score. So, but had some fun with them. I was definitely probably a player's coach there. But just trying to kind of keep the rails up for them a little bit, keeping them moving in the right direction without getting too sidetracked.
Sorry, it's all good stuff. And Daniel was talking earlier how we talked to Grayson Huff, and we also talked to Jan Butler, who both currently play under Coach Kleinard. And something they talked about was just the culture that he's built there and how everybody on that team is rooting for each other. Nobody's, looking for each other to play bad so that they can boost themselves up. Why don't you talk about just the culture of Auburn and the Auburn golf team, and what did you use from your experience being the head coach at Guilford once you moved into that role?
Yeah, there is a different feeling. Even if there's some aspiring coaches on here, there's a different feeling laying down at night when you're the head coach and when you're the assistant. When you're the head coach, like, everything ultimately comes down on you. When you're the assistant, it's like, especially Nick's so good at his job, it's like I lay down at night and I'm like, nothing's going to fall through the cracks. He's going to catch it before a disaster happens. When I was at Guilford, I'm laying there like transcripts on recruits, everything's going through your mind. Like, I got to, so it's different there. But I think that was a big reason Nick wanted to hire me, was head coaching experience, because you've got to make decisions and you've got to be decisive as a head coach. Sometimes you make the wrong decision, but you at least do it in a decisive manner. And that's important sometimes in leading some guys. But, the culture at Auburn, it's not because it's Auburn. It's not because it's it it takes a lot of work to have a strong culture. It doesn't happen by accident. I think that golf coaches spend a ton of time. I mean, it is a lot of time that's poured into building a program like that, and just the constant. There's so many things. It just never ends on trying to build culture and getting the right guys, having them understand the long-term goals for each of them as a player, and understanding that this is just a vehicle to help them reach their goals is hard. It's an individual sport, but it was something that we did a lot of team building stuff with. We spent some time with an author, John Gordon, who helped these guys. We did some exercises there that allowed these guys just to explain who they are as a person, what kind of makes them tick a little bit, what inspired them as a young player. And when you know more about the guy sitting beside you, you pull for him a little bit more, just like one of your siblings. I mean, you know everything about them. You start to love that guy, and you know that you're going to have to battle it out a little bit, but you want it to be because you shot 67, not because he shot 75, that you go to that next tournament. And so just trying to make it competitive, but then also, this was the last chance for these guys to be a part of a team. Unless you can, I guess you could go to live and be part of a team now, but that's a whole nother discussion. But yeah, this is the last chance where you're going to go and you're going to come to 18 green, and if you're the last guy out, you're probably going to have 4 or 5 of your teammates sitting around the green, their parents sitting around the green pulling for you. That next level, like, your girlfriend's going to be there and maybe your parents, and that's about it. Everybody else is going to hope you shoot 78 and miss the cut and go on. So just getting the guys to embrace that is something that's huge, and something that I think, somebody like Grayson, he really, that was one of his favorite things, was just the team environment. And so it's well, Grayson held on to it for about 6 years, but so after that time is done, it's something you don't ever get back. So we spent a lot of time just making sure that locker room pushed each other, but tried to love each other as well.
Absolutely. That's an important thing to have in a team, especially a golf team, because golf's, such an individual sport. You go out there and everybody has different days, and like in qualifying, especially, everybody has a different day. And even in tournaments, like, the team can win and that's a good day usually for everybody, and the team can lose, and that is usually not a good day for everybody, but somebody probably had a good day. So making sure that in either case, the people aren't necessarily too focused on themselves and focused on the important thing, which is the team. And by pushing the team, by pushing each other, getting each other better, that's a tough message to get through to guys, but also obviously a vital one when it comes to picking out players, saying, hey, like, I want them to be part of this team. I'm recruiting people, all that kind of stuff. In your role as coach, what were you looking for? Like, not just score wise, because there's a lot of guys that can play solid golf, and you look at the top of the leaderboard and you can find a few things there. What were you looking for as far as players? And then also, if you found it, I don't know if you ever found any players who were maybe diamonds in the rough or a little bit unpolished. What was it like finding them? What did you notice in them that helped you find them?
I think the biggest thing is you got to have, and I even kind of have tried to kind of think like this a little bit as a on the professional side of things for my career too, is you got to have guys that their sights are set one level higher than where they're looking right now. And it's not to say that they're putting the cart in front of the horse, but if just playing college golf checks the box for this kid, or when I was at Auburn, just playing in the SEC checks the box, like, they're going to be unfulfilled. They're going to get there, they're going to get the bag, and that fire may burn out a little bit. But I know you guys have talked to J.M. Butler. I mean, J.M. Butler wants to be great, and he wants to be great not only at the college level, not only the SEC level. he wants to be great on the PGA Tour. And so I knew if that was what was, and sure, everybody can say that, right? But you spend enough time with somebody, you ask enough questions, you ask some people things, you start to know that's the truth. And so that's what's ultimately going to motivate J.M. Butler to be on the range at 7 p.m. by himself when it's getting dark, because he wants to be great in the long run. And so that was always something. If I felt like somebody was just going to be like they were searching to get to wherever I was at, and that was going to be just good enough for them, that was a red flag. I mean, I knew they would have excitement now, but I knew that excitement would fizzle out at some point. So I mean, that's one of the biggest things. And I mean, diamond in the rough, yeah, just putting the whole story together. Grayson Huff was a kid that really started playing competitive golf when he was 14. He was a great tennis player before that. And you know what? One other thing that's different there about Grayson too, and I'm using these just as a specific examples, guys you've had on the show, but both are kind of classic, two different stories, but kind of classic things I look for. Was Grayson believed he was good, like even though he started later. I mean, that is, to me, that is the single most important thing. Obviously, we shoot a score, and it's easy to track that. But if you don't think you're really good at this game, it's gonna humble you really quickly, because I know it's popular to see, some of the outbursts on TV, and what gets, retweeted and clipped on Instagram of guys like negatively talking to themselves with a hot mic or whatever. But like ultimately, those guys think they're really good. They know they're really good, and to walk up and down a PGA Tour like at Tampa 2 weeks ago in Innsbruck, there's plenty of guys on that range that are not nearly as impressive as some of the college guys I see. But deep down, everybody out, like for the most part, everybody out there thinks they're really good. And that's the difference maker. And that was Grayson Huff. Like he hadn't been playing that long. And, while there's a few things with his technique when he first showed up that I didn't think were that good, he didn't know it was that bad. And he thought he was pretty good. So there's some value to that. There's some value to thinking you're good. And he kind of always had that quiet confidence to him. And I think that's a big key to why he's been able to have some success there. Has always had really good self-belief.
That is cool. We've enjoyed our talks with both of those guys and really found them both to be very personable. And as you said about Grayson, really seemed like he enjoyed his time at Auburn, and both of them have, obviously. As part of that, you get a product onto campus, like they work, like kids are out there working, and then we're the Tournament Code. We talk about tournaments, and I think one of the things that separates golf from a lot of other sports is the difficulty to recreate that tournament environment. And to me, like golf almost is essentially tournaments, because there's playing for fun, and that's fun, that's good. But playing in tournaments is kind of where you see what you're made of. Like you go play pickup ball, you can see what you're made of pretty easily. Like most things you can simulate. Golf tournaments, just for some reason or another, are unique in that facet. So you guys go to tournaments, you play golf, all that kind of stuff. But what was it like preparing those guys for the tournament? Because I heard that you were integral as far as tournament preparation for them and getting them ready for those tournaments. So tell us a little bit about that.
Yeah, I think, I spent a lot of time brainstorming, just trying to figure out different ways that we could be competitive every single day. I mean, guys by nature are just extremely competitive, right? I've alluded to that a couple times today, but just having something on the line every day for them, creating an environment, whether we had this massive kind of dry erase board in the locker room where we were keeping track of stuff. We would maybe have a couple team practices a week, depending on our group a little bit. If we had some more freshmen that needed a little bit more guidance, we might have a few more. But it was a day where I would have something completely laid out and kind of a competition where they're going to get points for each one, whether it's X amount of wedges from certain yardages to what we called sand pods to short game competitions that, require different things, all that. And then it tallied up to, at the end, a winner. And, that winner they may just get to be Insta famous for a day, and we post a picture of them on there, right? But it was something to have them compete every single day and feel like there was something on the line, something to compete for. And then, you know, we tried to continue to push it a little bit to where maybe this would accumulate to the winner of this series of practice got a one stroke advantage in qualifying. Well, because that gets their attention. Now all, I'm not just going through the motions hitting these wedges. If I can gain a one shot experience, everybody on that team, on a competitive team, has been there when one shot has been the difference in them getting in the van or not. And so, yeah, you start watching their eyes light up a little bit when they've got a chance to do that. And I think that was the key to the environment, is just always making those guys feel like there was something that they could achieve, and just trying to just take a normal Tuesday and make them feel like this is a chance I can get the upper hand for a qualifier that may be a week away. So yeah, just always trying to be creative. All these guys are they'll work as hard as long as they feel like there's something to work for. So always trying to have some motivation for them.
Absolutely. I mean, I'm sure it got their attention because that got my attention. That is a very unique way to go about it. And I'd never thought of something like that, but I really like the thought process that went into that. How did you structure qualifying? Were there exempt spots? Was it play for all five? What did it look like for you guys?
Yeah, a little bit. It varied a little bit. The best qualifiers, honestly, were when everything was up for grabs, when it was straight up. And, a lot of times that was the beginning of the semester. And it could be 6 rounds, and hey, we're playing straight up for 5 spots. There was never really, I feel like, not many weeks where there was less than 3 spots up for grabs. And you would have two coaches picks there. Try to do Definitely one of the things from being a younger coach to where I was towards the end of my coaching career is it's definitely better to, my opinion out there, it's definitely better to go ahead and put those picks out there up front. Because if Daniel, you and Cooper are playing, and I've just said we're playing for 3 spots and I'm going to pick two, and you're both coming down 18, and you're both kind of in that like 4, 5, 6 roll, there's not you don't quite know where you stand, right? And so the ability to kind of clutch up and get something done, or make it happen, it's in a weird spot. So I at least felt like if you made the exemptions on the front end, and the two of you were coming down the stretch, and you knew, like, even if you didn't agree with my two exemptions on the front end, you at least knew where you stood on 18T, and that one of you probably needed to make birdie, or you're playing a little bit of match play, and when you hold that putt on 18, you know where you stand. So that was how it went for the most part. I think there were some times where we would kind of hold on to picks, and then guys would walk off 18 and go like, well, I hope he picks me. I'm not sure if I'm gonna how it's gonna work out, but I think just we evolved a little bit and tried to have some clarity there as to the guys know where they stand coming down the stretch, and that ultimately helps prepare them for those pressure situations in tournaments.
So just to make sure I'm understanding it clearly, like you would basically exempt the top two guys on the team and then always qualify for 3, 4, 5.
And sometimes maybe there's an additional spot there as an individual or something, but yeah, and usually try to have at least 54 holes. I thought anything less than that, especially you're playing some of the same golf courses in a town, right? And you may have a freshman who's been around them 4 times, and you may have a senior who's been around them 100 times, right? So trying to at least have 54 holes to where guys could separate themselves was something I really tried to do there. So that was part of all that goes into even your tournament scheduling. If you scheduled your tournament schedule too tight, then you knew you weren't going to have the opportunities to have that qualifying, which then you ran the risk of the culture of the team could be a little off, because whoever made that first tournament, if you scheduled tight tournaments and you don't have any qualifying in between, they feel like they get shut out for a month, right? And they don't feel like they get an opportunity. So that was all those things went into factoring into how you set up your schedule, so that it allows you to do at home what you feel like you need to do as much as on the road too.
That is cool to see the kind of thought that you put into making sure that culture was thriving. when we talked about earlier at Guilford what you did as far as practice rounds and preparing for the course, at Auburn you had more resources, maybe more time. Tell us a little bit about what you did to prepare for those tournaments with practice rounds. I don't know, maybe like yardage booklets, other types of things that you had access to.
Yeah, so yardage books, when I first got there, if the PGA Tour had played, obviously the Seaside course where we played SECs, we had the Mark Long Tour Sherpa books that had been around, right? But really, like the Strakaline Putt View books hadn't come along. So this would be awesome. I've shared this kind of junior camps with some players. I was going into Google Earth, and I am basically able to mask these holes. And I'm trying to think of what the books are called now. They're basically a blank canvas where you can draw your own holes. But we had some guys that couldn't draw anything, so I had to take control of this, and I would basically take the Google Earth images and trace them and print them and slap them in these books and basically create our own yardage books. Like I had, a few key sprinkler heads, and I knew from there from past years that it played six up or four down or whatever it may be. But we were creating books like that, and then Strakaline and Putt View thankfully came along because I was spending way too much time cutting and pasting these custom yardage books. But yeah, I mean, whatever it took to give us an advantage. We had numbers in the book to where we weren't guessing. And so, we had diagrams of the green to know that as we marked it on there, you're standing back in the fairway, not understanding is it below that ridge or above it, like our guys knew. So those were all the things we did from as we advanced a little bit, we had a meeting room that I would set up. Again, Google Earth continued to evolve, and we would actually run through the golf course, hole by hole. And so while still the same thing applied that we talked about earlier, only one practice round in college golf. If I could sit down at, especially with some of our freshmen and just kind of run them through the Google Earth layout of the golf course, have them better understand everything, it just made it a little easier, a little bit more expedited for that practice round. So we were doing everything we could to make sure these guys were prepared, even sometimes before we left the property.
When it comes to like running through Google Earth, I think Cooper and I both have an idea of what that looks like. But tell us a little bit, like, what are you going through with them on Google Earth? Like, you're not probably, at least like Cooper and I did the same thing, actually, like making our own yardage booklets. We did that back in high school.
Yeah, I can remember in college, even like my freshman year, we didn't have, those type of yardage books you were talking about. So I did the same exact thing and it worked. But the amount of time that it took for me as a college athlete, it's just totally,
and even
that didn't make sense. But
exactly. And
it's what I had to
with
do.
Qualifying for like a US Am a while back, Cooper went to that and I caddied for him. And I knew a little bit about Putt View books, but wasn't that familiar with them and didn't even think of it as an option. So we had taken like one of the blue golf like course diagrams and had like these like full, like I'm talking full 8x11 pages and had drawn everything on there back before you couldn't do that. And so like we kind of get what goes into diagramming or like walking someone through a hole via Google Earth, but tell us a little bit about what specifically you were telling them, like, hey, here's how this hole looks, measurements, all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, and we would a lot of times if I had Google Earth up, they would they would have a yardage book sitting at the table, and so they could kind of make notes along the way. And it's like, hey, this hole is going to look tighter than it really is, but here's the measurement, and you drag one side to the other, and you're like, look, you've got 73 yards here, right at a perfect 3-wood for you. Don't feel like you've got to take less off this tee just because it looks tighter, and just having them get comfortable with some of that stuff. Because practice rounds were always, you never knew if you got a little bit of weather delay or something like that, you may not get to spend adequate time on every hole like you wanted to. And then just kind of understanding just around the green where your X's are and where your check marks are. Like a lot of times a front right miss on a par 5, for example, might be a check mark to every hole location on that green. and just kind of explaining, cutting the greens in half and saying when the pin's in the back half, this green's actually okay to be over the back of because it pitches down towards you and it's easy to kind of pitch back into it. And just going over stuff like that so that they get there, they've never seen the golf course, and then they open up their book and they've already got some decent notes in there. That was the biggest thing, just helping them feel more comfortable where, from our past experience playing places, where misses would be, and, just trying to take away some of the confusion that maybe some of the tee lines would present for them.
Yeah, just having that actual data, if it's the right stuff, can really free you up as a player. And that's something we always talk about is just having accurate data with stat tracking and, getting the right stuff out of your round post tournament. And you were coaching right kind of around when strokes gained first came out. What did you guys work with that right when it came out, or how did you guys track stats?
Yeah, we used a few different stat tracking programs and things like that. The most beneficial as of late was kind of moving into the decade stuff, which aligned itself very well, with strokes gained and what Scott Fawcett had done there to, I think just to allow guys to understand just and manage expectations with strokes gained too, right? I mean, that's the best thing about strokes gained is we all think like anytime we get less than a 9-iron in our hand, we should be getting it up and down. And it's just not the case, right? So, and just understanding that when we've got a 5-iron in our hand, if we can just hit the green and 2-putt, like we're gaining strokes on the field. And so all those things were big. And while we had some guys that really followed the decade system better as far as, making their adjustments to adding to and shifting to the right, some of your best players, I think, already naturally did that a little bit. But I think the best thing that came out of it was just understanding the expectations. If it is perfectly okay with this 6-iron in my hand to hit the green and 2-putt and walk away here and with my head held high. And it's just so many guys think like, I just think we live in such a highlight based world that like these 6-irons should be cozying up inside 10 feet. And that's just not the case, right? Tried to track some stats like that. It gave us some, these reports gave us some strokes gain stuff that was beneficial. Quickly moved away from the old dinosaur stats I kept as a junior golfer of, putts per round. It was like, yeah, I sure I could average 30 putts per round. I also averaged 9 greens, so I was still terrible. But, so some of those things that we just spent some time as a kid doing, Mark Brody has changed it all with strokes gained. So
absolutely. I think that stats are something great to learn from. And as you said right there, I think strokes gained is one of the best stats out there to learn from, even especially with putting. I would say again, like it's important almost on all of them, like driving for sure, but like with putting, it's so easy to see that 37 putts number, 35 putts number, feel that number because it feels like, hey, I was putting all day. But when you actually get the strokes gained putting, you can really quickly diagnose that. We have buddies out who play on all sorts of levels of golf, and some of them like to keep hard stats, some of them like to keep like some more basic stats. And I understand why people might be reticent to keep certain stats or keep strokes gained because it takes time to enter in those things. But the one stat that, like, if you're not going to keep strokes gained driving, not going to keep strokes gained approach, the one stat I would be keeping obviously is strokes gained putting because it's not that hard. You can pretty quickly like remember where you were. I think obviously the more accurate you are as to how close you are to the hole, the better as to that stat. But even then going back through the round, you can generally like put it together correctly. And that gives you a much better picture of how the round went for you. So we've talked a little bit about stats. We've talked a lot about your time at Auburn, but obviously there's more than just your time at Auburn. Tell us how you ended up at Titleist and what you do there now.
Really kind of came out of left field a little bit. We were fortunate at Auburn to have some good support from Titleist. We had a lot of players that played Titleist product there that had been on some levels of support since late high school and things like that. So what are now my teammates would stop by campus and make sure that guys were comfortable with their equipment. We're in, college is hard from an equipment standpoint. Your body's changing, your swing's hopefully changing for the better. all those things change the fit of your golf clubs. And so we were fortunate to have a couple of my teammates, once or twice a semester, always stopping by just to work with the guys and make sure they're in a good place. So I got to know them a little bit. Would also have some guys come and test golf balls with us a little bit, just to as things are changing on 2-year rotations, making sure that these guys were educated on which golf ball is best for them. And if they didn't need to they needed to make a change, understanding what those differences would look like. So I knew this Titleist team pretty well. We had some success at Auburn, and it was a great place, and honestly was kind of one of those places you wouldn't just leave Auburn for any head coaching job out there. I mean, so at the same time, the maybe some of the jobs that I had my eye on were the same jobs that coaches that were there now are probably going to stay there till they retire. And then if they did open, you could bet it was going to be crazy competitive to get that job. So it's kind of a similar story. I'm sitting on my couch, my phone lights up with kind of the head of kind of the next gen program at Titleist. I have his number, but not somebody that calls me often. And says, "Hey, I'm coming into town next week. Would love to grab dinner and pick your brain about an opportunity." And we did that. We talked, and part of that was coming to Dallas and still continuing to work with college players. That's the bulk of what I do, college and high level amateur players. I still do a couple tour events every year. I'll go here in a couple weeks down. It'll be my second LPGA event of the year. So we try to help out where we can there too, but the bulk is still working with college players. And, hearing those opportunities, digesting it a little bit, man, I knew this was going to be a great opportunity, and one of those where I may have kicked myself down the road if I didn't take it. It's an awesome company to work for. I still get to stand on the tee with players and talk with them about what they're trying to do on the golf course. And I still feel like I get to put my coaching hat on a little bit in those scenarios. I think what our team is exceptionally good at is working with these players and understanding the big picture for them. Instead of just taking, maybe your local club fitting, right, that happens with your higher handicappers. Those guys have to manipulate some clubs sometimes to make it work for these players, right? We're really draw bias, we're really upright, we're doing some of these things just to get the guy not to slice it, right? But with us, we're trying to understand where they're at right now with their golf swing, who they're working with, what they're trying to work on, and build their set around where they're trying to go. Instead of just saying, I could make this golf ball fly better for you today, is setting the golf clubs up in a way that they are going to fly best for them when they're doing what they want to be doing with their golf swing as well, and performing there and educating them. I mean, you have so many players that come in chasing, like, man, if I could hit this 7-iron further, that'd be awesome, right? Well, like in a scenario of fitting, when we're on a clean lie on the grass and we're hitting a relatively full shot, like that's as much spin as you're ever going to put on it, right? And so if we dip into stronger lofts and things like that that lower the spin and make the shot go further, that looks great on the range, but that's not how we play golf. Because as soon as your golf ball hops over into the first cut, or as soon as you hit a little knockdown shot, we lower that spin from there. And now you've got this ball coming in hot, and you're trying to play an elite schedule. If that hole location's in the front tucked or the greens are firm, you can't stop the golf ball like your playing competitor can. So just trying to get those guys to understand how we set up your bag is not, while I live on TrackMan every single day, just getting the numbers to be sexy and cool is not how we play golf either. You got to have a holistic approach to how you're setting up the bag to allow them to have all the opportunities they need at the highest level.
That is cool. Tell us a little bit more about what your role involves. You're a next gen club fitting analyst. What does that mean? When people are people visiting you in Dallas? It sounds like you're visiting people too. Like when you're fitting them or in the process of that, like how does your team work together? And tell us a little bit about that, and then some of the things that when you're fitting players, not just like looking forward, but maybe some specifics about like, here's kind of what we think about, especially with these high level players.
Yeah. So what it looks like for me, obviously, I'm on a team that we've got a couple guys in San Diego that are part of my team that this next gen team that handles a lot of college golf. I'm here in Dallas. We've got one in Atlanta, one in Pinehurst, and one in South Florida. And so really kind of the southern brim's kind of covered. And that's so that we can travel within a radius to high level programs, which have, some of the top ranked amateurs in the world there. And so going to campuses is part of what I do just to check in on players. Obviously, I can drive to a lot of them here from Dallas that are within the Big 12, or you've even got Texas A&M in the SEC, and then I'll go a little bit north there with Arkansas's and Kansas's and Iowa and stuff like that. But we all kind of sit down and map out where we need to go to take care of the players that we need to take care of, and the programs we need to take care of there. But then we're traveling to tournaments as well. Like I just got back from Charleston last night, where I was back to the Hootie at Bulls Bay, where I'd coached many years at Auburn. So it was weird to be back there. The bugs were still there, unfortunately, but no, it was weird to be back there and not coaching. But it was I worked with a couple of players on the range, just getting a couple clubs right where they want it to be, and we're kind of almost like a satellite tour truck those weeks. I usually have one full club glove and then one hard case with me as well, just to be able to, if somebody gets somewhere and the course is set up differently, and maybe instead of a hybrid that week, they want to try a 2-iron option. Sometimes if I anticipate that, I'll have those with me and gives them that opportunity. Or their golf swing's changing a little bit and they just need to make a simple setting change on one of their woods. Now that they are delivering the club a little bit better, now we need to probably adjust that loft to get the flight and spin where it needs to be. So we're watching, evaluating players too. I mean, that's a big thing, is at the end of the day, I mean, our program is put in place to identify these young players at a young age, build the relationships with them through college, in hopes that they turn out to be the next Justin Thomas, Jordan Spieth, Cam Young, right? Because then they're doing what they're doing. Cam Young's coming on. People are like, well, what's Cam Young play? What golf ball does he play? What driver does he play? And that drives people into golf shops. And that's why we do what we do. So that's part of our evaluation process out there too, is, hey, this kid keeps getting better and better. And, sometimes that's just the kid that, like, you're not going to be surprised if he breezes through his first year on Korn Ferry Tour. It's not always because people out there too are like, now that they know JT Poston, right? I mean, that's a guy that doesn't have the same college background story as maybe Justin Thomas and the other JT, but people are now intrigued as to what's in his bag. What's he play? I keep seeing his name on leaderboards. And so you're trying to find those guys too.
That's interesting. When I was caddying on the Korn Ferry Tour last spring, something I noticed was, like, all these players that are obviously really good, one day before the tournament, they're testing out new clubs, they're switching out things in their bag. And for me, I played a lot of golf tournaments, none where you had a fitter on site, but I just couldn't imagine switching, say, my driver or my 3-wood shaft like the day before a tournament. So, how do you balance, like, fitting someone in the most optimal club and, keeping them comfortable with what they're used to?
Yeah, I mean, I think there's got to be something there from the player desiring a change. Obviously, I mean, I'm going up and asking them how school's going. I'm asking them how their family is, all that stuff, and I'm not certainly looking to make any changes. But if a player's looking for something, sometimes even if it's that day before or the practice round, it's like, hey, I just see maybe a little bit of spin out of my driver right now. Can you look at it? And we make one setting change, and now they see a flatter, stronger ball flight. They're excited. Now they feel like they've got new energy going into that tournament, right? And I think the key piece is, having been a coach and on that side is how you word things to players too, right? Like Cooper, this driver right now, you could go win with it this week. But I see what you're saying about it spinning a little bit. We could knock a few RPMs off and let's change it here and hit a couple and see what it looks like. And you hit it and you're like, I love it. But at no time did I ever say like, man, this looks terrible. Like you're if I don't change it right now, you're gonna really struggle this week. And so that delivery is part of it too. To keep those players, like I said earlier, they have high self-belief. And so the last thing I would ever want to do would be to put any doubt in their head that they can't go win the tournament that week, no matter if they've missed the last 5 cuts. So that's kind of part of what we do too, is making sure we say things in the right way to keep those players' mindsets staying at the highest level.
That's a cool way to get to interact with players, and it's cool that you still get to get out there and work with them to a degree. We only have a few more questions left, but one of them right here is, all right, you get to work with these players now, and you've been at a bunch of different levels. You've been a player, you've been a coach, and now you're working with Titleist. What are some of the things that you've noticed or learned, like going back out there, like, oh, I forgot it was this way. I forgot that players were like this. I forgot about this environment. What are some of the things that you've noticed in retrospect?
Just the golf's hard, I mean, it's really hard out there. And I think a little bit when I was coaching, I wasn't playing as much. And when I did make the move to this, I made a promise to myself I'd start playing a little bit more. And some would argue that, I think I played 25 rounds last year. That's not still a lot, but that's a lot more than I was playing when I was coaching, honestly. So it was nice to get back out there and struggle a little bit. It's one thing to hit a 7-iron or hit a driver, but you've left it in a bad spot and you got 54 yards over the bunker. That's not an easy spot for some guys sometimes. And so I just think still playing, just to have an appreciation for how hard this game is. But I mean, players are, they just, the ones that are extremely internally motivated seem to be the guys that separate themselves. There's so much external out there right now, but at the end of the day, it's like the guys that want to be great, and they don't want to, same thing, they don't want to just make the field next week or this, like they want to keep pushing it to be great, to be the best there is still the separator, just the internal drive there, high self-belief, and guys that are aiming beyond the level that they're currently at is still the separator for sure.
That is cool to hear. Well, we appreciate you taking the time to join us. The last question we ask every guest is, if you go back to yourself as a junior golfer and tell yourself one thing, what would that one thing be? And then in your case, because you still kind of, work around the junior landscape, if you could tell a junior golfer just one thing, what would that one thing be?
The one thing is if you want to be great, is sacrificing the now for the future that you want. There's so many things, so many fun things to do when you're young, and you got to have some balance. You can't just beat balls all day, but how you're using your time, how you're treating your body. Sure, you could stay up late with buddies, the night before a practice round or whatever, and it would be fun. But getting rest that night and be ready to go, that's sacrificing that night for maybe playing well that weekend and then rolling that into better and better stuff. So I think that's just, it's hard. It's hard for guys to understand that at a young age that, some of the fun things out there will still be there one day. But if you want to be great as a young player, just working when other guys aren't working is the best way to get an advantage. So sacrificing now for the betterment of the future, and just try to enjoy it. This game's hard. Try to enjoy it the best you can. So that would be the advice.
I think that is spot on. If people want to find you on social media, reach out to you, learn more about you from you, where can they find you or reach you?
Yeah, I've got I've got Instagram and Twitter. I think things have converted. I think it's all Corey Maggard or Corey_Maggard now at either one of those. Probably pretty easy to spot me, probably with a white golf hat on in the profile pictures there. But Yeah, so on there, not a huge following, but like to read through what's going on out there from time to time.
Awesome. Be sure to give Corey a follow. And then if you're listening to us on Spotify or Apple Podcasts, please subscribe and leave us a rating. And if you're listening on YouTube, please like and subscribe. This helps us get our message out to more people. And if you're trying to find us on social media, you can find us on Twitter at Tournament Code and on Instagram at The Tournament Code. As always, we enjoyed talking with you and look forward to diving in deeper what it takes to play elite tournament golf.